Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Paint a Mini. So today we're looking at more of the Doom board game. We're looking at one of the possessed soldiers here. Now this guy you don't need a lot of colors for, but you just need to be kind of careful because there are a lot of little tiny details. The first thing that I like to do is I always like to do the skin tones first, and we're going to do something kind of weird with this. So the first thing that we're going to do actually is we're going to start with a blood red color here, okay? By the way, I will show at the bottom of the screen all the different colors that we're going to use. Okay, and once you get your blood red out there, you're just going to make sure to cover all of the different sort of pieces of skin and whatnot. So we're going to start with this arm right here. And I am using a Reaper series brush here. This is I think this is just a standard 0 brush. So it's kind of small, but it's not, you know, the smallest or anything like that. And it's definitely not the biggest. But yeah, let's just go through and get all of the skin pieces here. Like I said, we're going to start with the shoulder. The reason why we're doing this as red is because while you would normally expect it to be tan or something like that, we are going to use the tan skin color later. But the possessed soldiers, all of the different demon, the sort of cybernetic demon creatures from Doom, they've all got a very gory sort of, really, really messy looking sort of organic subsystems with their cybernetic components. Very, very bloody. And so it actually is pretty effective to do this blood red color, and then you're going to dry brush some tan skin over that, so we'll get to that in a little bit here. But yeah, that's why we're doing this, because it's going to give it a nice, you know, twisted, evil, cyber-demonic look to it, which is what we're looking for. It looks like he's got some wires going, you know, kind of around his arm and down his arm and stuff like that. Don't worry too much about going on top of those. You don't have to worry about, you know, going around them or anything like that, just because we can go over those later if we need to. It is going to be easier to go over them later than it will be to try and navigate around them. But yeah, see, there's a big tube kind of coming out of him right there. That's kind of what I'm talking about. I'll actually go around that one just to kind of show if you do want to go around those tubes, you can, but you certainly don't have to. It looks like I didn't get complete coverage on this base coat. See how there's a little bit of that tan color that the plastic color originally was underneath the arm there, but that's no big deal. That's fine. By the way, something to make sure to do with this mini is that there is some skin that's actually going past this great big tube that's going along his little arm cannon there. So just make sure that you get this, because it can be easy to overlook. Alright, now it looks like the skin kind of wraps all the way around his back here. So just make sure we do that. Now here you do actually kind of want to make sure to be careful. Try not to go over all of the different, I don't know what you call them, armor pieces above and below the sort of spine there, because you want to leave those as black for sure. Alright, and then it kind of looks like it wraps all the way around to the left side of his torso here. Yeah, that's nice and bloody there. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is the fingers. These are just really simple here. Now, it's not the whole hand, it's just the fingers if you look closely, so you just kind of want to do the tips of the fingers here. Okay. Get that little piece right there. There we go. Okay. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, now the next part is going to get kind of tricky, so be a little bit careful. We're going to do the head. So we're going to start up on the left side of his head right here. And again, try not to actually paint over those cybernetic components that he's got, because you do want to leave those as black. And then the other thing too is don't paint the inside of his mouth. Just go, you know, along the bottom of his jaw there. And then right above his upper mandibles. But yeah, leave his mouth black. Okay, well, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to touch up some little details on here, all around and all that. Okay. And I am going to let him dry because you do want him to be super dry before moving on to the next step. So I'm going to let him sit for a minute and I'll be right back. Alright, and then after he's dry like that, you just want to make sure that that whole blood red color is totally dry, which it looks like this is here. You're going to take this tanned skin color. Get a little bit of paint onto this plastic surface here. By the way, I do always tell people make sure that you use a plastic surface rather than a paper surface. You know, like a paper towel or a sheet of paper or something like that. Just because the paper surfaces will tend to absorb the paint, and you don't want that. If you've just got a if you've just got a plastic surface like this, it's not going to absorb your paint. Okay, so we're going to use this the Citadel small dry brush here. We're going to get some paint onto the brush, but we're going to wipe off most of it. Okay, and then we're just going to go over all of the red that we did. Don't be super afraid of getting some paint onto the black there, because we can just go over that later. So last week was E3, and you know, since we're painting some Doom minis, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about some stuff. I posted a video talking about the new Wolfenstein game. I'm pretty excited about that. I did like the Wolfenstein: The New Order a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it had good mechanics as well as like a good story and good characters and everything like that. It was just a solid game. I really liked it. So I'm excited to see the new one, Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. That was showcased. I look forward to that one quite a bit because you know, my heart kind of belongs to classic shooters like Doom and Wolfenstein and all that. So yeah, when they showed that, I was pretty excited. I'll definitely get that one. Probably on release date. I don't see why I would hold off on it. I think that it looks like it's going to be pretty fun. Bethesda also announced a sequel to that Evil Within game. Now, I have mixed feelings about that game, and apparently a lot of people don't. A lot of people either kind of love it, or they just kind of hate it. You know, you look up people talking about it online and all that, and it's understandable why people are upset with it. Some of the controls are a little wonky. These sort of ability tree and upgrades that you can get for your character and for your weapons are very basic, and they're not very fresh or anything like that. So it didn't really offer a whole lot that was new, but I felt like it was a pretty worthy update to the sort of idea and premise of Resident Evil 4, which I guess, I'm sorry, I forget his name, the Japanese gentleman who originally made or directed Resident Evil 4. I guess he was a big director or designer or producer something of the Evil Within, And that's why there are a lot of similarities there. Well, apparently they're making a sequel. Obviously, it's just The Evil Within 2. And I didn't mind the first game, but it did have some flaws, and I'm hoping that the second game kind of addresses those. Like, okay, we made the first game, we've learned from our mistakes, and now we're going to make a solid entry. Maybe that's going to happen, maybe not. I'm not really sure. I'll probably hold off on getting that one right away. But I am still curious about it. Right now, what I'm doing right now are the fingers. So again, what we're doing is we're just dry brushing over all of the blood red bits. The fingers kind of come down like this, right? Just straight off the hand. Don't stroke downward with the brush. Stroke across the fingers, and that way you'll leave the sort of red. The red color deep in those little crevices in between the fingers there. That's kind of what you want. So yeah, Evil Within 2 I think has potential, but we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. I'm not sure. So something that is just inevitably going to happen when you do this technique onto this mini is that you're going to get some of that tan skin color onto the cybernetic bits. Honestly, don't worry about it, because we'll just go over that with some more black paint later on, and that'll work out fine. Yeah, there we go. That way, with that sort of, red and tan color, it looks like this sort of, rotting flesh perpetuated by machinery type look. It's very, very, very flesh and metal, which is kind of a big theme of Doom. Heck, it's the name of one of the tracks on the soundtrack that was done by Mick Gordon. I do like that soundtrack quite a bit. In my previous videos, I was actually using the music from that as just kind of background noise. But honestly, let me know what you guys think, of course. But I think I kind of prefer just no music. I think I kind of prefer just the sort of peace of mind of just doing this and enjoying myself rather than having that music going on. Okay, so we've got that done. Like I said, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over all of those cybernetic bits with more black paint. We're going to go back to this pure black color right here. And we're going to once again just use our regular standard Reaper brush. And you don't really need a whole lot of paint for this. Hey, pupper. And then, yeah, just kind of go back over all of the different little cybernetic components that you might have gotten some skin color onto. And yeah, those sort of tubes I was talking about earlier, we're going to go over those tubes with this black paint here as well. He's also got some little tiny kind of black spots coming out of his back here. Let's just go ahead and poke some little dots on there. Yeah, there we go. That'll be fine. And it looks like he's got some similar things going on the side of his arm here, so we'll just dab over those. There we go. Okay. Okay, and I think that's it. Now we've got the skin color, definitely the sort of skin color that we're going for there. That looks pretty solid. I'm going to take my dog out, actually, because she's not been out this morning yet, and she's very quick to remind me of that. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. Alright, so once we have that done, once we've got the skin tone done, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over all of the cybernetic components with this honed steel color. And we're just going to do a dry brushing for all of that. So we're going to go back to our small Citadel brush. Once again, just kind of get a lot of paint onto the brush, but wipe it off. Okay. And then just kind of go over the whole thing. Do kind of be careful not to go over the all of the blood bits with this honed steel color, but they're also at a contour point, I guess, that's lower than the actual cybernetic pieces, so it's definitely a lot easier to dry brush the cybernetic components and not get paint on the flesh parts than it is vice versa. It's a lot harder to dry brush the flesh parts and not get that dry brush color onto the robotic parts. And that's why we do the skin tone first, actually, is because it's a lot easier to do the steps in this order. So, I was talking about this in the previous video, I think. I did not actually go see that new Mummy movie, mostly just because I kind of looked around at all the reviews and all that, and apparently it just wasn't very good, so I never really bothered with it. Apparently the problem with the movie is that it focuses way too strongly on trying to establish a new universe, a new franchise, I guess, that it gets caught up in that and doesn't really establish its own personal story very clearly, and I guess that's where the movie really struggled. So I never saw it. I didn't really care too much at that point after I had, and that was a pretty general consensus. Pretty much everyone said that. So I just kind of didn't bother with it. I did, however, go see a sort of an indie horror movie called It Comes at Night. And that's kind of a divisive movie, I guess. There are people who either love it or they hate it, and I thought it was okay, but I also thought that it seemed like it was trying almost way too hard to be a sort of indie movie, where it was very quiet and was very, very reliant on symbolism and aesthetic and all that, and while it was well written and well made, I think that it kind of it's a lot harder to really get your hands on, I guess. Intellectually, I guess. It's very abstract. Even though, honestly, and that's the thing too. I think that it tries to be more abstract than it is. I think that the ending is actually pretty cut and dry. A lot of people say, "Oh, what did the ending mean?" Because some could argue that it's up to interpretation. I didn't really think so at all. I thought that the ending was pretty obvious and basic with what it was trying to say, and I think that was pretty much it. But yeah, it was okay. If you do like unique individual sort of horror movies, go see it. Maybe don't go see it in theaters. That's probably out of theaters by now, to be honest. But maybe just rent it or catch it on Netflix in a couple of years or something like that. Because it's okay. It was an okay movie. It just seemed like it was trying way too hard to be more artistic than I think it really was, which isn't really a bad thing. But yeah, I didn't love it, but it's okay. It's an okay movie. Okay, so once we've got all of that done, you see, he already looks pretty good. Actually, we don't need to do very much left with him. Oh, you know what? I don't have my water. Whoops. Let me grab that. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry, I just had to rinse my brush off. Okay, so once we do that, we're going to move on to this polished silver color. So when you look at the sort of high-res pictures of the possessed soldier, you'll see that he's got sort of points on his armor that are a lot brighter than other points. It's mostly it's the helmet. It is the helmet. It's also the chest piece, as well as some sort of like sides of the thighs, and then some legs and some like shoulder pads and stuff like that. So all we're going to do is we're going to take that polished silver color, and we're going to once again go with our just regular Reaper standard zero brush here. And then rather than dry brushing over those pieces, we're going to actually be very, very careful and methodical, and we're going to just lightly go over the different sort of contours of those pieces. So we're going to start with the chest here, and right in the center there's kind of a prominent little piece here, so we're just going to go over that, just like that, just a little tiny dot, okay? And then there's another one on the side here, and this is just kind of you want to go over the sort of high points of these lighter armor pieces, so that you can bring those out. And that's what we're doing right now. Oh, by the way, if you don't have honed steel or a polished silver, you can also use in place here for each of these. You can use rainy gray instead of the honed steel, and you can use well, actually, you can just use the rainy gray for both of these. So basically, you would dry brush rainy gray over over the whole thing, like what we did with the honed steel, and then you would just you know, touch up each of these little armor pieces with that rainy gray color, with the way that we're doing it right here. You don't want to dry brush these lighter colored pieces here, because when you do it like this, when you're just careful and you just kind of go over each individual little raised piece, it helps to bring those out. We did a similar thing actually when we did the Doomguy Alpha in a previous video. I'll put a link to the other Doom miniature videos that I've done so far. I've done the Imp and I've done Doomguy Alpha so far. And I think those turned out pretty well. I'll put links to those videos in the description for this below. Oh, hey, by the way, that reminds me, actually. I do want to give a little bit of a shout-out thank you to YouTube user Dethcricket for requesting that I actually do this video. Because I guess he was interested in doing some possessed soldiers, and he kind of wanted to see what I do in order to do these, and this is kind of going out to him there. So thanks for requesting that, Mr. Dethcricket. I appreciate it. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, next we're going to move on to the helmet, I think. Just a similar kind of thing. So sometimes if your paint is starting to get a little bit dry, like mine is right here, you can just kind of dip the very, very tip of your brush into some water. You don't want to submerge all of the bristles. You just want to get the tip. Bit my tongue there. You just want to get the tip in there, and that'll kind of help to thin your paint a little bit, and it'll help you get some finer details here. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, you can use rainy gray in place of the honed steel and the polished silver here, but I do prefer to use the metallic colors, the polished silver and the honed steel, just because it's got a little bit, it's got a metallic look to it. I mean, it's got a sort of a reflective sheen to it, and I think that that's appropriate for this, you know, cybernetic dude here. Okay, so we've got the helmet there, and we've got the chest piece. Next, let's move on to this sort of shoulder pad right here. By the way, I do advise people whenever you're doing things like this, because you are kind of doing some fine details here. You don't need a super fine detailed brush, but you just want to take your time and be careful. But rest your hands onto the corner of a desk or a table or something. I always do this here. I'm leading my hands onto I'm just resting my hands completely on this sort of on this coffee table here, and that helps to steady your hands and lets you do these fine details a lot more easily. Okay, yeah, and we've got that sort of shoulder pad right there. Next, we're going to do the little thing on his forearm here. This is really simple. It looks like it's just two little pieces that have a sort of dividing line going right down it diagonally. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, next we're going to move on to I'm going to clean my brush off, actually. So one thing about that polished silver color, this color right here, is that it does dry really quick. I would honestly say that it dries a lot more quickly than any other color. So sometimes you'll need to get out some extra paint more quickly than you would other paint, because you don't want it to sort of clump at the end of your brush. I mean, you're doing fine details here, so you want to make sure that your details are nice and fine. We're going to move on to the little things on the sides of his hip here. Now this one can get kind of tricky. The trim along the side of those little pieces, along the sides of those pieces, that's not very difficult. It's getting into the pieces themselves. You want to still leave a little bit of a line, a little bit of a dark line to separate everything, but you just kind of want to do this sort of thing here. Just make sure that you leave the contours, you know, that is to say the lines that separate the inner stripes here to the upper stripes, you know. Leave those nice and defined, because you don't just want to go over the whole thing. You want to leave some contours, give some definition and some depth. Yeah, it looks like this thing just kind of goes all the way around his waist here, so we'll just go all the way around it. Okay. And that leads us into the next part. We're going to get this little thing here on the side of his thigh. Okay, this can get kind of tricky because I'm going underneath his little arm cannon here. But just kind of be careful and just come at it at an angle that's comfortable for you. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's do this little kind of buckle on his front here. Do that. There we go. That'll be fine. Okay. Next, let's move on to his knees. My paint's getting a little dry again, so once again, just going to really lightly dip the tip of the brush into some water. Okay, that'll thin it down quite a bit. Okay. That's pretty much it for that knee. I can touch that up just a little tiny bit. There we go, that looks alright. Okay, and now we'll move on to the other knee. Okay. And that's pretty much it for that. Okay, the next thing that I want to do while I've got this polished silver color out is I actually want to dry brush that arm cannon a little bit with it. and that'll just kind of help to bring it out a little bit more, not quite as brightly as those sort of individual armor pieces that we just went over, but it'll set it apart a little bit from the rest of the armor, which just has that sort of dark gray, you know, sort of bolt gun color to it. There we go, that stands out pretty well. Okay. And honestly, I think we're almost done. The next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to get into some little tiny micro details. I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to do those teeth there. So I'm going to move on to this leather brown color. If you don't have leather brown, you can use the tanned skin color if you need to. I just like to use the leather brown because the sort of tint is just a little tiny bit different from the tan skin color, so it adds a little bit of variety. Alright, and we're going to move on to our little itty bitty micro detail brush here. This is a 30-0. Okay. And for this one, you just want to be super careful. And you can kind of see the individual teeth in there already, but just kind of dab a little tiny bit of that leather brown color onto the tip of your brush, and just kind of poke each tooth. There we go. That's all you need really there. It's just the bottom row. I don't think the top row really shows up very clearly at all. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to do the eyes, which, you know, I forget. Well, I guess. He's just got the one eye that's on the right side of his head there. You know, I don't remember what color the possessed soldier's eyes are. I'm going to go with red. So let's just go back to our blood red color here. We'll just use the same shade of red. That should be fine. And once again, we're just going to take our little tiny micro detail brush here. Now this can get kind of tricky because his eye is kind of really in there, but his eye is kind of really in there, but there we go. That'd be fine. And you know, I think honestly that's pretty much it. The last thing that we're gonna do, I will show this just because. Okay, we're gonna go over the whole thing with a varnish. So I'm gonna take this matte varnish here, and I'm just gonna get a little bit onto the brush here, or onto the little surface here. My cats are being really destructive right now. It's getting really annoying, actually. Okay. Then I'm just gonna use this big brush here that's just got old nasty bristles on it, and we're just going to go over the whole thing. And this will just kind of help add a little layer of protection and just kind of bring out the colors and the contrast a little bit better. Just going to look a little bit better on top of making it you know, a little bit safer. You can handle it more, and the paint won't rub off as easily and all that. Okay, and then I think that's it. Make sure that you rinse off your brush with that varnish really quickly, because the varnish, when it dries, can get really gummy and it can really mess up your brushes. And you still want to use an old brush for when you do the varnishes, but yeah, that's just going to help a little bit. And that's it. So thank you everybody for watching, and thanks to Dethcricket for requesting this this mini be painted right here. If there are any other minis that you want me to paint, just let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you want me to change up the editing or anything like that. If there's anything that I could do that would be more helpful or something like that, you know, just let me know in those comments. And thank you everybody for watching. Bye.